You make decisions, have instincts, recognize faces, and react to situations without fully understanding why. You just do. Your brain takes in information, processes it somewhere deep inside, and spits out an answer.
Nah, facts.
And most of the time, you don't question it.
Nah, facts. Hold on. He's spitting facts. Hold on.
Not a human, but a
Hold
machine.
on, let him talk.
One that makes decisions faster than you.
I think this is AI though. AI voice talking to me too.
There's no clear answer. It just knows. We built it, trained it, gave it everything it needed to learn, and yet we don't really understand how it thinks. At first, that might not seem like a big deal. After all, if something works, does it really matter if we understand it? But here's the problem. What happens when we start trusting something we can't explain?
Facts.
The most important decisions, who gets hired, who gets a loan, which medical treatment is approved, are made by a system that even its creators can't fully decode. The deeper you get, the stranger it gets. Because this isn't just a problem with machines, it's something we see everywhere. From the way the universe works to the way we think. We keep running into the same unsettling truth. We see the outcomes, but the process remains a mystery. So, how much do we really understand? And if we're building things that think without explanation, are we creating intelligence or just something we'll never be able to control? The hidden intelligence we can't explain. For most of human history, intelligence was something we could see and understand. If a person made a decision, we could ask them why. If an expert solved a problem, they could walk us through the logic step by step. Even the most complex systems, governments, economies, machines, were built in a way that, at least in theory, we could break down and analyze. But now, we've built something different, something that doesn't operate like us at all. Artificial intelligence, particularly the kind powered by deep learning, doesn't follow the neat, rule-based logic we're used to. It's not like a traditional computer program, where every step is carefully programmed. Instead, it learns patterns in massive amounts of data, more than any human could ever process, until it starts making decisions on its own. And that's where the problem begins, because when we ask AI why it made a decision, it doesn't have an answer, not in a way that makes sense to us. It didn't follow a logical chain of reasoning. It didn't consult a rulebook. It simply recognized patterns so complex and abstract that are beyond human intuition.
Wow.
Take image recognition, for example. If you show AI a picture of a dog, it can tell you with near-perfect accuracy that it's a dog. But how? A human might say, it has fur, 4 legs, and a tail. The AI, on the other hand, doesn't think that way. It has studied millions of images, identified microscopic details we don't even notice, and created a mathematical model of what a dog looks like.
That's insane.
But if you ask it what specific feature made it recognize the dog, it can't tell you, because it didn't use any single feature. It used an incomprehensible mix of thousands of data points.
Which is literally, yo.
Now, this might not sound like a big deal when it's just identifying animals in pictures. But what happens when an AI is diagnosing cancer, deciding who gets a loan, controlling a self-driving car? Imagine this. A medical AI scans 2 patients with identical symptoms. It approves treatment for one, denies it for the other. When doctors ask why there's no clear answer, the system just knows. Maybe it noticed something deep in the data that doctors haven't discovered yet. Maybe it made a mistake. We don't know. All we see is the result. This raises profound ethical concerns.
It's insane.
If the AI has absorbed...
Got AI gods. Shit. Nah, just like Pantheon, nigga. Shout out.
biases from its training data.
No, that shit is crazy,
another, how do we detect and correct it before real harm is done? Some argue that this opacity isn't far from human decision-making. After all, we don't always see the logic behind our own choices. But when lives hang in the balance, blind faith in a black box isn't enough. Picture a self-driving car that suddenly swerves, causing an accident. When engineers analyze the system, they realize it made the decision based on a hidden pattern in its training data, something no human ever programmed into it. Maybe it avoided a crash that would have happened, or maybe it miscalculated. Again, we don't know.
That's insane.
The problem isn't that AI makes decisions, it's that we're giving it control over things that affect real lives, and we don't fully understand how it's thinking. And here's the part that should make us uncomfortable. We're still using it anyway. AI is already making decisions about hiring, learning,
that's why we use,
and even warfare.
That's why we need UI, right? Uploaded intelligence, right? Fuck out of here with that shit, nigga.
We're trusting something we don't understand because most of the time it works. But when it doesn't, that's when things get messy. We're forced to lean on outcomes over processing.
There's a lot of shit coming, bro. I just don't know. Hey, we don't even know where we're headed.
If it works, we use it.
Too much
Understanding be damned. That's a gamble. It could mean faster processes in science or medicine, but also untraceable errors, eroded trust, and a widening gap between tech creators and users. The fix? For quantum, better error checking and hybrid classical quantum validation. For AI, pushing interpretability research. For both, maybe a cultural shift, accepting partial ignorance as the price of power, while building guardrails to keep the chaos in check. That means regulatory oversight that evolves as fast as the tech itself, ethical frameworks that prioritize human welfare over efficiency, and an insistence on human-in-the-loop decision-making for high-stakes applications. We may never fully see how these systems think, but we can control how they're used, ensuring that the chaos remains contained within carefully built guardrails. This isn't the first time humans have had to deal with something powerful that we don't understand. In fact, if we zoom out, we start to see a pattern. Because this whole situation with AI, it's not just a technology issue, it's something much bigger. From the way particles behave in quantum mechanics to the way human consciousness works,
even
the world
works,
is full of mysteries where we see the results but don't fully grasp the process.
Like intuition, like that's like easy. Like a lot of these, even how niggas come up with ideas. Some ideas just appear, you know, like, bro.
We've
It
always
just
lived
doesn't even
inside a
make any
system
sense.
we don't completely understand. AI just happens to be the latest and maybe the most dangerous example. So the real question is, are we okay with that? Why this is a problem? For now, AI mostly operates in the background. It filters spam from emails, recommends movies, adjusts traffic lights. These things don't require a deep understanding of how it works. If it does the job well, we don't ask questions. But the stakes are getting higher. AI is now embedded in medicine, finance, law enforcement, hiring, and even military decision-making.
Insane.
The moment we let AI make choices that directly impact people's lives, the black box stops being just a technical issue. It becomes an ethical one. Take healthcare. AI is already better than doctors at detecting certain cancers in scans. It finds patterns in medical data that humans might never notice. But here's the catch. If a system flags a patient at high risk for a disease, without any explanation of why, do we trust it? Do doctors act on that information even if they don't know what the AI is seeing? And what happens when it gets things wrong? In 2019, a medical AI system used in hospitals, published in Science, which dug into a widely used healthcare algorithm, was found to be biased. It consistently recommended less treatment for black patients compared to white patients. It flagged black patients as lower risk than white patients with the same health conditions, not because of overt racism in the code, but because it was trained on cost data, how much was spent on patients historically. Since black patients, due to systemic inequalities, often got less care and thus lower cost, the AI learned they needed less attention, even when their actual health was worse. This bias was baked into the...
Yo, I'm not gonna lie, bro. This is what I'm saying. This is why it's leading toward conscious AI, because artificial AI, unless it's quantum AI, like it's not gonna be able to really understand a lot of the nuances in life, bro. This shit is crazy. Do you hear that? That's insane.
The numbers and the black box nature kept it invisible.
And I'm sure it's probably
researchers dissected it. The implications here
I'm sure it's probably varies too,
killer.
based on
Patients
race
and
too,
doctors
like
relied on this tool,
based on
assuming it was
data and
objective,
shit.
but it was quietly reinforcing disparities. Lives were likely impacted. Some estimate it affected millions of patients before it was caught. Second, it shows how opacity shields flaws. If the AI's decision path was transparent, someone might have spotted the cost-to-care disconnect earlier. But with millions of parameters churning away, it was a black hole. Third, it's an accountability mess. Who's at fault? The developers didn't intend bias. The data was real, and the hospitals just followed the output. Yet the harm was tangible. This also highlights a nasty feedback loop. Biased data creates biased AI, which justifies more biased decisions, entrenching the problem. And since we can't fully unpack the how of these models, catching it often requires external sleuthing. Here, it took a team of scientists comparing outcomes across racial groups to crack it open. Fixes like retraining on better data or adding fairness constraints help, but they're band-aids if the core opacity persists. It's a stark warning. The black box problem isn't just academic. It can amplify real-world injustices under a veneer of neutrality.
Shit.
Makes you wonder how many other systems are quietly doing the same, undetected.
Black box.
Now apply this to law enforcement. Some
Black
police departments
box
use
radio.
AI to predict crime hotspots. The idea is simple. Analyze past crime data and predict where future crimes will happen. But here's the problem. If the data is biased, the AI will be too. If certain neighborhoods have been over-policed in the past, AI assumes they should be policed even more, creating a feedback loop that reinforces existing discrimination.
It's fucking...
The decisions feel objective.
Yeah, it's not even like on some like... It can't detect the actual evolution of shit. That's the problem. It doesn't have a real-world like tether.
Because they come from a machine, but they aren't. Then there's finance. AI decides who qualifies for loans, who gets approved for insurance, and even how much people should pay.
That shit doesn't even make any
If a bank's
sense.
AI denies you a mortgage, you might never know why. Maybe your income was too low, maybe your credit history had issues, or maybe, without
Like
realizing it,
AI in its current state is literally the best assistant, but like that's it.
the AI learned a pattern that discriminates against certain demographics. And since most financial institutions don't fully understand how their AI models work, they may not be able to explain the decision. And the scariest part is that these systems aren't just assisting humans anymore, they're replacing them. AI is already handling legal contracts, making stock market trades, and writing news articles. It works faster than any human could, and for the most part, it gets things right. But what happens when it doesn't?
For the most part.
May 6, 2010, an AI-driven stock trading algorithm went rogue and wiped out $1 trillion in market value from the Dow Jones US stock market in 36 minutes before bouncing back. Traders had no idea what was happening. There was no time to react. The system had only picked up on patterns that made sense to the AI.
Like
But
what?
to humans, it was pure chaos. markets only recovered because emergency safeguards shut down trading before the collapse could spiral further. It's a wild case of AI opacity colliding with high-stakes reality, and it's still debated what exactly lit the fuse. Consensus.
High-stakes reality. See, reality is high stakes, bro. You can't that's not some shit that can be stagnant with impacting data. It's not how it works.
On a mix of high-frequency trading.
It has to exist in world. The AI has to exist. Like, it has to actually exist. That's the only way for it to even. Some parts of it, like a part of it, has to exist, or at least have like a transmitter that actually exists in the world for it to actually be able to have a full grasp of why things are happening, this and this, that this and this. Oh shit, I'm looking at, I'm thinking that's the camera. But and then not only on top of that, but it's excluding lifetimes of, unless we can simulate consciousness, unless that's the thing, then nigga, I don't, oh no.
The AI wasn't rogue in the sci-fi sense. It was doing what it was designed to do. Execute
because trade. It's excluding the the context behind everything. You know what I'm saying? Obviously there's an objective reality and then there's a subjective reality, which is a form of objectivity within the subject's field. But it's that's just weird.
It's based on patterns it saw. Problem was, those patterns triggered a feedback loop with other HFT systems, amplifying a normal dip in freefall.
Oh no.
Humans watched
so
dumbfounded
many layers
as the black box spat out chaos.
And I'm high, so I'm sorry.
Speed meets opacity here. 36 minutes was too fast for anyone to peek inside the algorithm's logic, let alone stop it. The AI didn't think about market stability.
Do y'all hear
it
this?
chased its own data-driven tail, oblivious to the carnage. That's the first hit, when decisions are inscrutable and instantaneous. There's no human in the loop to hit pause. Second, it exposed fragility. Markets rely on trust, and this shredded it, even if only briefly. Billions in trades got cancelled post-recovery, but the psychological dent lingered. Third, it showed how interconnected black boxes can domino. One AI's move sparked others, none of them seeing the big picture, just their own narrow inputs. Safeguards like circuit breakers that halted trading saved the day, but only after the fact. Regulators later fingered HFT and pushed for tighter rules, yet the core issue persists. These systems learn and act on patterns we can't fully decode. A 2018 SEC report still called it a perfect storm of tech and timing, not a one-off fluke. Today, HFT runs 50 to 70% of US equity trades, and while crash risks are mitigated, the black box problem isn't solved, just caged. Now imagine this happening in military systems. Autonomous drones already exist. AI is being tested for battlefield decision-making. The idea is that a machine processes
driving cars, self-driving cars,
choices in combat. But if an AI decides to strike a target and no one can explain why, who takes responsibility?
Facts.
The decision is buried in a neutral net trained on classified data. No one can fully explain it. Not the coder who built it, not the soldier who launched it. The programmer might say it learned from the data. Biases or just war's fog. Who's accountable? The soldier? They didn't decide. The brass? They signed off on a system they don't understand. The AI? It's not a person, legally or otherwise. The 2023 Pentagon Directive on Autonomous Weapons nods at judgment in the loop, but in practice, split-second AI calls blur that line. Opacity makes it untraceable in real time, just like the flash crash, but with no circuit breaker to pause a war. And trust? Soldiers and civilians alike could turn on the tech or each other if outcomes feel random. A 2022 study from the Center for Naval Analysis warned that AI's speed could outstrip human oversight, creating accountability gaps no one's closed yet. Control's the kicker. We think we're steering, but if the AI's logic is a black box, we're just riding it. Fixes like forcing explainability or keeping humans in every kill chain sound good, but lag behind the tech's pace.
Forcing explainability,
Ethics play catch-up. My gut? Maybe we're not fully in control. Not fully. We're betting lives on systems we can't dissect, hoping the patterns hold. Black boxes in physics, when reality itself stops making sense. If you think AI is the only thing operating like a black box, think again. The truth is, we've been dealing with hidden processes for a long time. We just didn't always notice. In fact, some of the deepest mysteries in physics work the exact same way. We see the outcomes, but we don't fully understand the mechanisms behind them. Take dark matter and dark energy. Together they make up about 95% of the universe, yet we have no idea what they actually are. We can see their effects. Dark matter holds galaxies together. Dark energy is accelerating the expansion of space, but we don't know why. We've never detected a single dark matter particle. We don't know what force is driving dark energy. We only know that something is there, shaping the universe, but the mechanism behind it remains completely hidden. Then there's black holes. We know they exist. We've even captured an image of one. But what happens inside a black hole? That's where physics breaks down. The math stops making sense. Space and time collide into something we can't describe. We can predict what happens when something falls in, but what happens beyond the event horizon is unknowable. Or look at the beginning of the universe. The Big Bang Theory tells us that the universe started from an unimaginably hot, dense state about 13.8 billion years ago.
Bro.
We can trace everything back to a fraction of a second after it happened. But the exact moment of creation? A complete mystery. Our laws of physics don't work at that point. We don't know what came before it, or even if before makes sense as a concept.
Literally.
And what about the fundamental laws of reality themselves? Take gravity. We know it exists. We can measure its effects, predict its strength, and calculate how it pulls planets into orbits. But we still don't know what gravity actually is. Einstein's theory of relativity describes how gravity warps space-time, but it doesn't explain why mass bends space-time in the first place. And when physicists try to combine gravity with quantum mechanics, it stops making sense. We have equations that work, but the deeper mechanism? Still unknown. The universe's parallel to AI, or quantum computing's opacity, is uncanny. If it works, we roll with it. But here's the difference. In physics, those black boxes, like black holes or quantum uncertainty, are nature's doing, not ours. We didn't design them. We simply uncover their mysteries piece by piece, accepting the limits of our understanding. With AI, though, we are the architects. Yet we built machines that replicate the same unknowability. We created systems that make decisions we can't fully explain, mirroring the deepest riddles of reality itself.
Like, what the hell?
Hubris, thinking we can control what we barely comprehend, or is it simply the cost of pushing the boundaries of complexity where understanding becomes secondary to function? And speaking of quantum mechanics, that's where the black box problem gets really weird. In the quantum world, particles don't behave like they do in everyday life. They exist in multiple states at once, a phenomenon called superposition. They can be entangled, meaning that two particles, even light years apart, can instantly affect each other.
And even think about your feelings, it's like, bro,
we don't know why any of this happens.
You could feel multiple things. It's like, it's so many
fire a single
layers
electron at a barrier
to
with two
bro.
slits. You'd expect it to pass
That's,
through
I think,
one slit
like,
or the other. But instead,
AI
like
who can feel or something of that nature or something.
Forming a pattern
I don't
until you
know.
try to observe
It's
it.
weird.
The moment you measure which slit the electron goes through, the wave-like behavior disappears. It's as if reality knows when we're watching. Why does this happen? No one fully understands. We just know that the equations work, the calculations are perfect. But the underlying truth? A mystery. And it gets worse. Quantum mechanics tells us that particles don't have definite properties until they're measured. An electron isn't really spinning one way or the other until we look. Before that, it's in a kind of undefined state. It's not that we're missing information, it's that reality itself is undefined until we interact with it. Which leads to a disturbing question. Is the universe fundamentally unknowable? Are we living inside a reality that only gives us partial answers, like a black box that refuses to open? Because if so, then AI isn't the first thing we built that we don't understand. The entire universe is operating on a set of rules that we can describe but can't fully explain. AI is just following the same pattern. It gives us answers, but not explanations. It works in ways that are useful, but unknowable. And that brings us to something even more unsettling, our own minds. Because if the universe operates like a black box, and AI operates like a black box, what about us?
Yeah, facts.
How do we know we aren't just another system producing answers without fully understanding ourselves?
Facts.
Consciousness, the ultimate black box.
Literally.
If AI is a black box, and the universe is a black box, then what about you? Because if we're honest, we don't understand how our minds work either. Think about it. You make decisions, feel emotions, recall memories, and experience thoughts, yet you have no idea how any of it actually happens. You don't control your heartbeat, you don't consciously form memories, you don't decide to get a sudden idea, it just appears.
Facts, I was just talking about
behind
that.
the scenes, processing information and forming conclusions. But you only see the results, not the process. This is one of the biggest mysteries in science. What is consciousness and where does it come from? Neuroscience can tell us which parts of the brain light up when we feel fear or happiness. It can track electrical signals firing between neurons. It can map out which areas control movement, language, and perception. But it still can't explain why a collection of biological cells produces subjective experience. Why do we feel anything at all? And here's the really weird part. Your brain makes decisions before you even realize it. In a famous neuroscience experiment, researchers monitored brain activity while people made simple choices, like pressing a button with their left or right hand. What they found was disturbing. The brain showed signs of making the decision several seconds before the person was consciously aware of choosing. In other words, the decision had already been made before the person thought they were making it. This raises a huge question. Are we truly in control of our own thoughts, or are we just experiencing the results of a hidden process we don't understand? Evolution didn't provide us with a user manual for our minds, it simply delivered results. And only now,
that shit is cooking me. Yo, I'm too fried. I'm too fried.
And here's where AI comes back.
Because it's like, bro,
right
hey,
now,
bro,
AI
chill.
models are
Don't
just
put those
advanced pattern
images.
recognizers.
Bro,
They don't
niggas
have
need to stop
self-awareness.
using these images, bro. That shit, yo, come on, bro.
They don't think in the way we do. But
Come
then again,
on.
what if we don't think the way we think we do? What if
Shit's
our own
frying my
intelligence
shit,
is just
nigga.
a biological black box, spitting out conclusions in ways we can't explain?
Yeah.
After all, when we look at an AI system making a decision we don't understand, we say it lacks transparency. But is human thinking really any different? If I ask you why you like your favorite song, or why a joke is funny, or why you suddenly remembered something from years ago, can you truly explain it? Or do you just know? This brings up a terrifying possibility. What if AI isn't a black box because it's unnatural? What if it's a black box because that's just how intelligence works?
Yeah.
What if everything we think of as understanding is really just an illusion, a comforting story we tell ourselves to make sense of something deeper that we'll never fully grasp? And if that's the case, then what happens when we create something smarter than us? If intelligence itself is a mystery, then a superintelligent AI wouldn't just be unknowable. It would be an enigma on a scale we can't even begin to fathom.
Facts.
We've never fully understood our own minds, and now we might be building something that magnifies that uncertainty 1,000-fold.
Literally.
Can we solve the black box problem? We've spent centuries trying to understand the world, peeling back layer after layer, convinced that if we just ask the right questions, we'll eventually get all the answers. But what if that's not true? What if some things aren't meant to be explained, only observed? With AI, we're already trying to open the black box. Researchers are working on explainable AI, models that don't just make decisions, but also provide reasons we can understand. Instead of an AI saying, this patient has a 78% chance of cancer, it might highlight exactly which factors in the scan led to that conclusion. Instead of a self-driving car making a split-second maneuver, it could explain its reasoning in human terms. But there's a problem. The more we try to make AI interpretable, the less powerful it becomes.
Wow.
The most explainable models tend to be simple. Decision trees, rule-based systems, things we can easily break down. But the most powerful AIs, the ones that predict disease, trade stocks, and generate human-like text, are not simple. They're complex neural networks, millions of layers deep, operating on a scale too vast for human intuition.
Wow,
So what do we do? Do we force AI to be transparent, even if it limits its potential, or do we accept that intelligence, whether artificial or biological, might always contain some mystery? Force them to simplify and unicap them. A 2020 study from MIT showed that trimming a neural net to be more interpretable, like pruning connections or flattening layers, often tanks its performance. Make it explain every move in plain English, and you're just asking it to dumb down to our level, losing the edge.
Insane.
It's like asking a chess grandmaster to justify every pawn push. You'd get clarity, but they'd lose to a rookie.
Yeah.
The same question applies to physics. We can describe quantum mechanics, but we don't know why it works. We can detect dark matter's presence, but we can't explain what it is. Are these just temporary gaps in knowledge, things we'll eventually figure out, or are we running up against the limits of human understanding? And what about consciousness? Neuroscientists are mapping the brain, breaking down thoughts into electrical signals and firing neurons. But is that enough? Even if we can map every connection, will that actually explain why you feel pain, experience love, or form memories? Or is there something about awareness itself that will always remain just out of reach? Maybe the real issue isn't AI. Maybe it's us.
Facts.
Maybe intelligence, whether artificial, human, or even
Like,
cosmic, isn't meant to be
Pantheon,
completely
like,
understood.
if
Maybe every
we,
mind is a black box,
I mean,
processing information in
don't,
ways that
like,
even
bro,
it doesn't fully
it's
grasp.
weird, bro, because I don't
And the
really
more
care
advanced
to
intelligence
do, but
becomes,
like,
the more
literally,
unknowable it gets. So,
it's so
can we
much
solve the
potential
black
with
box problem?
anything
Maybe, but the question is,
at this
what happens
point.
if we do? So we're stuck. Want full transparency? You get a weaker system, easier to trust, but less capable of real breakthroughs. Want raw power? You're back in black box territory, left deciphering something far beyond your grasp. Some propose a middle ground, hybrid models where a simple explainer shadows the complex core, but even then the explainer is just a surface-level interpreter, not the full truth. And here's where it circles back. If intelligence, ours, AI's, all of it, is inherently a black box, then maybe this limitation isn't just a technical hurdle, but a fundamental reality. Push too hard for clarity, and we might strip away the very essence of what makes intelligence work at all. The paradox is
Literally.
clear. Understanding and control might come at the cost of true capability. So, do we embrace the unknown and let it run, or do we force comprehension at the risk of dulling the edge? Maybe the
So,
real question isn't whether we can open the box.
to be fair, like, I mean, we don't understand everything about what the next person might be saying. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like feelings and a lot of stuff plays into a part. So, it's like, I don't know, it's weird. Intelligence is different, though. Intelligence is more, like, logical, typically. So, you know, logically speaking, we don't have the processing an AI does. So it's like, it's not going to be the same. Now, the only way to fix that is, you know, shit, get that chip, shit, or like become a fucking hybrid cyborg or some shit. Or come up with some bioengineering, you know, that does something to the brain or something, you know, because we have other things our brain is used for. It's not just for intelligence. So, I mean, it makes sense. You
But we
know, it's
should.
just, you know.
We like to believe that intelligence means understanding, that the smarter we get, the more we'll know.
It's really
But
processing.
intelligence is really just pattern recognition. What if the most
Processing.
powerful minds, whether artificial, human, or something beyond, aren't defined by their ability to explain things, but by their ability to function despite uncertainty? We created AI to think
Functioning.
for us,
I think
but
it's
now we're realizing
functioning
it
in
doesn't
general.
think like us. It recognizes patterns too deep for human intuition,
Oh,
makes decisions we can't fully explain,
functioning,
and solves problems in ways we
uh,
never would. And that makes us uncomfortable.
functioning
Not just because it's
necessary,
unpredictable, but because it
like,
forces us to confront the fact that we are also black boxes.
just functioning efficiently, but like intelligence is functioning. Intelligence is efficiency, bro. It's just, it's weird.
We don't fully understand our own thoughts.
Shit.
We don't know why our
Because not
universe
everything
works
is
the
a
way it does.
pattern, I
We
feel
exist in
like,
a system that
right?
produces outcomes we can see, but whose inner workings remain a mystery.
Right?
AI just happens to be the
And
first
that's
thing
where
we've
things
built
get
that
tricky.
reflects that mystery back
It's
at
like,
us.
is everything
So
built?
maybe the black box problem isn't something we
Bruh.
solve. Maybe it's something we learn to live with. Because if we ever do unlock every answer, if we break open the last black box and expose the final secret, what happens then? Do we gain control? Or do we realize how much we never had to begin with?
Damn, bro. Good video. Good video, bro.